Hello everyone, welcome back to Shimna Study Corner. Today we are going to deal with the first chapter in Class 11 textbook Hornbill. The name of the chapter is The Portrait of a Lady, written by Khushwant Singh. Khushwant Singh was a prominent Indian novelist and journalist, an important post-colonial novelist writing in English. Singh is best known for his trenchant secularism, his humor, and an abiding love of poetry. His comparisons of social and behavioral characteristics of Westerners and Indians are laced with acid wit. This story tells us about the relationship between a grandchild and a grandmother. The story is basically set in Punjab. The initial part of the story happens in a village in Punjab and the latter part happens in a city. Khushwant Singh talks about the change in relationship of a grandson and a grandmother once they change their places or shift their places from the village to the city. Now let's take a look at the chapter. My grandmother, like everybody's grandmother, was an old woman. She had been old and wrinkled for the 20 years that I had known her. People said that she had once been young and pretty and had even had a husband. But that was hard to believe. My grandfather's portrait hung above the mantelpiece in the drawing room. He wore a big turban and loose-fitting clothes. His long white beard covered the best part of his chest, and he looked at least 100 years old. He did not look the sort of person who would have a wife or children. He looked as if he could only have lots and lots of grandchildren. As for my grandmother, being young and pretty, the thought was almost revolting. She often told us of the games she used to play as a child that seemed quite absurd and undignified on her part, and we treated it like the fables of the prophets she used to tell us. Here, this story is in the first person narrative, and it is very clear that the narrator is the grandchild. Now, the grandchild says that his grandmother was an old woman, and he says that for the 20 years he has known him, she has remained the same. She has been old and wrinkled for all those 20 years. From this, we understand that the grandson is 20 years old when the story begins. All the people told the grandson that his grandmother had once been a young and pretty woman, but he finds it difficult to believe this. This is because he had seen her for the past 20 years as an old, wrinkled lady. The grandchild also found it difficult to believe the fact that the grandmother once had a husband. Now he says that his grandfather's portrait hung above the mantelpiece in the drawing room. After that, he describes the appearance of his grandfather. He says that his grandfather wore a big turban and loose-fitting clothes. He also had a long white beard which covered most of his chest. He says that his grandfather looked at least 100 years old. The grandchild could not believe that the grandfather could have a wife or children. But yes, indeed, he looked like he had a lot of grandchildren. The thought of his grandmother being young and pretty occurred to him as quite revolting. This is because, as I told you earlier, he had seen his grandmother as an old lady for the past 20 years of his life. She used to tell him about her childhood days, the games that she played, etc. This seemed quite strange to him, and he felt that it was undignified on her part to say all these things to her grandchild. The children who listened to this treated these stories like fables, which she told to them. These fables were that of the prophets, and these were as unbelievable as these fables that she told the child. She had always been short and fat and slightly bent. Her face was a crisscross of wrinkles running from everywhere to everywhere. No, we were certain she had always been as we had known her. Old, so terribly old that she could not have grown older, and had stayed at the same age for 20 years. She could never have been pretty, but she was always beautiful. She hobbled about the house in spotless white with one hand resting on her waist to balance her stoop and the other telling the beads of her rosary. Her silver locks were scattered untidily over her pale, puckered face, and her lips constantly moved in inaudible prayer. Yes, she was beautiful. She was like the winter landscape in the mountains, an expanse of pure white serenity, breathing peace and contentment. In this paragraph, the grandchild actually describes more about the grandmother. Initially, he gives us a description of her physical appearance. He says that his grandmother was short, fat, and slightly bent. Her face were full of wrinkles. There were a lot of wrinkles on her face, and in fact, the whole face was covered with the wrinkles. And because of all these reasons, they were pretty sure that his grandmother had always been the same way as this. He feels that his grandmother was so terribly old that she could not have grown older. He also feels that she has stayed the same for 20 years. There has been no change in her age for these 20 years. She could never have been pretty, according to him. He never felt that she was pretty in a way in which young women would be. But then he agrees that she was always beautiful. He says that she was always beautiful in a spiritual way. He says that she moved around the house in spotless white dressing. Her dress was always white without any dirt or stains on it, and one of her hand always rested on her waist so that she could balance her stoop. Earlier, he has already told us that she had a slight bend. And another thing which she did without a break was telling her rosary, telling the beads of her rosary. This shows that she was in constant prayer. Her silver locks were scattered untidily over her face. Silver locks here refers to the grey hair of her head. So she never bothered to comb her hair or arrange it properly. Therefore, the hair always was scattered over her pale face, pale and puckered face. Her lips constantly moved in inaudible prayer. As we saw earlier, she was in constant prayer. She never stopped praying. Yes, she was beautiful. Again, he confirms that his grandmother was a beautiful lady, and he compares her to the winter landscape in the mountains, which is very beautiful and also peaceful. He calls her, or he compares her to an expanse of pure white serenity, and he felt that his grandmother always breathed peace and contentment. Contentment means satisfaction. My grandmother and I were good friends. My parents left me with her when they went to live in the city, and we were constantly together. She used to wake me up in the morning and get me ready for school. She said her morning prayer in a monotonous sing-song while she bathed and dressed me in the hope that I would listen and get to know it by heart. I listened because I loved her voice, but never bothered to learn it. Then she would fetch my wooden slate, which she had already washed and plastered with yellow chalk, a tiny earthen ink pot, and a red pen. Tie them all in a bundle and hand it to me. After a breakfast of thick, stale chapati with a little butter and sugar spread on it, we went to school. She carried several stale chapatis with her for the village dogs. Here, the narrator describes more about the relation between the grandmother and the grandchild. He says that they were good friends. This is because he lived his childhood with his grandmother. His parents had left him with his grandmother when they went to live in the city. So, his parents had shifted to the city and he was left here with his grandmother. And because of this, they were constantly together. She used to wake me up in the morning and get me ready for school. Now, this is something which we see always. Grandmothers wake the grandchildren up in the morning and get them ready to school. She said her morning prayers in a monotonous sing-song while she bathed and dressed me in the hope that I would listen. So, as we have already seen, she is a spiritual person. She keeps praying. Even when she gets her grandchild ready for school too, she continued the prayers. She did this with the expectation that her grandchild would listen to the prayer and get them by heart. But the grandchild was least interested in learning the prayers. He listened to her intently because he loved her voice. After getting him ready to school, she would give him the wooden slate, a tiny earthen ink pot, and a red pen which he could use at school. She would tie them together in a bundle and give it to him. He used to eat a breakfast of stale chapati with some butter and sugar. Now, his grandmother accompanied him to school. Before setting off for school, she carried some stale chapatis with her so that she could feed the village dogs. My grandmother always went to school with me because the school was attached to the temple. The priest taught us the alphabet and the morning prayer, while the children sat in rows on either side of the veranda singing the alphabet of the prayer in a chorus. My grandmother sat inside reading the scriptures. When we had both finished, we would walk back together. This time, the village dogs would meet us at the temple door. They followed us to our home, growling and fighting with each other for the chapatis we threw to them. Here, we see the reason why the grandmother accompanied the grandchild to the school. We understand that the temple and the school were connected. The priest himself was the children's teacher. Now, we get more and more proof of the fact that she was very close to her prayers, temple, and God. The priest was the one who taught the children the alphabets and the morning prayer. The grandchild remembers that when the children were learning with the priest, his grandmother would sit inside the temple and read the scriptures. After finishing school, both of them went back to home. When they went back, they met the stray dogs or the street dogs at the temple door. The dogs would follow them to their home, and on the way, the grandmother would throw the stale chapatis to the dogs. She loved feeding the stray dogs. This shows that she was also compassionate towards every living being, including the stray dogs. When my parents were comfortably settled in the city, they sent for us. That was a turning point in our friendship. Although we shared the same room, my grandmother no longer came to school with me. I used to go to an English school in a motor bus. There were no dogs in the streets, and she took to feeding sparrows in the courtyard of our city house. So till then, the grandmother and grandchild were sharing a very warm bond between each other. But things took a sudden turn when the narrator's parents called for both of them, that is the grandmother and grandchild, to the city. Once they were settled in the city, they called for or they sent for the grandmother and grandchild to come and stay with them. He says that this shift from the village to the city became a turning point in their friendship. They shared the same room even in the city. In their city house, they shared the same room. But still, the friendship did not remain the same. The grandmother no longer went to the school with him because, as you all know, in city schools, parents or grandparents or guardians are not allowed to accompany the children in the school during the school hours. So, she stopped going to school with him. Similarly, there was a change in the kind of school to which he went to. Earlier, we have already seen he went to a village school which was connected to the temple. There, the priest taught him the lessons. But now, he went to a different kind of school. He went to an English school and he was picked up and dropped back in a school bus. Unlike the village streets, there were no stray dogs in the streets now. So, the grandmother no longer took stale chapatis to feed those dogs. Instead, she decides to feed the sparrows in the courtyard of their city house. So, she never lost that compassion for other living beings. She continued to feed the sparrows. This is what we see in this part of this chapter. In the next part, children, we will see how the change grew up to be a very big distancing between the grandmother and grandchild. So for now, I hope you have understood whatever has been taught till now. So with this, students, we come to an end of the first part of the Portrait of the Lady written by Khushwant Singh. We'll continue in the next part. So till then, it's bye from me. See ya.